Okay, I love this. Data-driven. Deliver us from the hunch, okay? So this is all about data. My guess is many of you have been involved in conversations before. This is where this came from, was from about 5 of our schools, didn't want to be mentioned by name, who shared with us more at the heads level a concern they have with the board. So let me see if this has happened at your school or on your watch. An absolute thirst, almost a demand for dashboards, more data, more data, more data. Show me how this is connected. Show me how investing in this will work. A hunger for data, oftentimes coming at the governance level, that almost can't be quenched, right? So it's almost like you're feeding this data need. And you're trying to ramp up your systems that will actually provide that kind of data, all right? It's the rage. It's the rage in every regard. Admission funnels, test scores, fundraising, demographics, surveys of current parents, and everyone else. I love it when we work with a school, and we will literally spend 2.5 months surveying everybody, and we'll go through 140 slides of data. I mean, like, we know everything about the school and can identify here like the 6 or 7 things you need to be focusing on, and a board member will say, yeah, did you survey ... That's when I almost tune out. The last part. So you might like, did you survey like the passed away pets of of the last generation of students that graduated but didn't return? I mean, it's like, really? Are you serious? Everybody wants data. It's interesting because culture seems to be valuing intuition more. But organizationally, we're wanting more data. My question is, what are they doing with it? What are you doing with the data? Data in itself is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. What are you doing with data? It's an ongoing issue that I want to use as a sidebar. We have yet to work with an independent college or university that does not have a person assigned to institutional research. Every college I've ever worked with, they have an institutional researcher. Always have. It could be a person, could be 10 people, depending upon the size of the institution. And many of these organizations actually have budgets not much different than you, some of the small colleges. We have yet to work with an independent school that does have an IR person. A person that's job is to tie data sets together, to make choices about information. Independent schools are kind of missing the largest point. It's not about data, it's about insight that inspires action. It's not about collecting data. It's just not. It's what are you going to do with the data? So I put on this slide something I learned from a mentor years ago, and that really is the movement from data to action. He would always say, Ian, if you collect data and you organized it, it turns into information. And if you actually looked at it reflectively and did some crosstabs and kind of checked it out closely and organized it, you'd turn to analysis. And if you really dug deep into the analysis, you might find 5 or 6 salient points of insight. Ah, now I see. His question is, what you're working toward is actionable insight. So what are you going to do differently or change in the way because you think differently as a result of having this? I still think we're just stuck at the data point. Okay, we're gathering data. I just don't see a lot of what we're doing with it. Actionable insight is the holy grail. This requires integrated information systems. They actually have to talk to each other. They have to operate real time. So you update one part of the system, the rest talks to each other. And then the last one I felt like was a really good one. Has this been good, by the way? Have you enjoyed this? Number 7 is what I'm calling from diversity to inclusivity. And we've had the opportunity to work this year with 3 or 4, 5 regional associations on their strategic plans. Kind of fun, actually, really fun work to work with SAIS or other organizations. And I'm going to actually call those associations as a cohort kind of the contributor, because they're representing what the needs of their memberships are and what the needs of their memberships are experiencing. And then we're seeing kind of those major shifts. So see if you follow me here and if you would agree with this takeaway. I would say 20 years ago, if we did this, diversity, the word diversity was trending. It would have been the big word. The D word was everywhere, and it was in every strategic plan. But our definitions then were pretty narrow. I'm being honest with you. It was about ethnicity, race, or socioeconomic class. That's it. When we talked about diversity, we were talking about that. And so we developed systems that sought to integrate more of these basic lifestyle attributes in our schools. So those were kind of our metrics, our standards was how are we doing on a certain type of ethnic or racial attribute or socioeconomic attribute. I actually believe we live in a post-diverse world today. Christians talk about living in a post-modern world. I think we live in a post-diverse world, okay? 4 states have been minority majority for a decade. You talk to any kid today, they don't define diversity the way we do. I know when I talk to my kids, it's like they gloss over when I talk about diversity the way schools do, because they see it much more broadly, much more connected, more broadly than I think I can. I think culturally we're moving from diversity to inclusivity. That's the trend there. We're moving from singular, narrow, and simple definitions of cultural pluralism to a global society where cultural competency will replace diversity, where it matters how well I understand you and where you're coming from so that I can relate and work with you and collaborate with you and be present with you and be mindful of your understanding. So can we seek to understand and relate and work with people when not just their color or income, but their mindset or orientation is different than ours? By the way, I'm not making a political statement. I'm doing the Justin Timberlake, I'm just being a mirror here. This is what we're hearing across the country. Diversity is not the word. It's bigger than that. It's a bigger issue. Can we seek to understand people who are different than us in a much more broader context? How can we prepare our students for a future that they are already experiencing? Because my kids actually get this stuff. It's like me they're educating, right? And what does it look like from a policy standpoint? I have no idea. I really don't know. Good luck with that. I don't. Again, the goal today was to identify the trends, not answer the trends. Pose the questions. So, 7. I see 7 edu-trends. Disconnected and disengaged, I think possibly leading to our own detriment and demise. I think the learners are in charge, so let's get our priorities straight, particularly when it comes to professional development. I see the intersection of innovation and independence, and I believe we can invent the future. I really do. I have a very optimistic perspective about the future of independent schools, but only if we have the courage to develop what we know we can do and not be held back by constraints that we perceive are real that are not real. I think people are waiting for us to do that, by the way, hungry for us to do that. I think we need to get real. That's what our trends are telling us about the rise of authentic marketing. We're talking to people who experienced a different childhood than almost anybody in this room did. They see the world differently. Lots of broken promises, trust issues, trauma issues. I think we, unfortunately, tactically, have developed a unit in our businesses that is underprepared. Sorry, I'm just saying. I think we need to move from data and hunch to actionable insight. And I think we're redefining diversity for today. I think that's where we're at today. I think we're moving in a completely different place. Now, if you threw all of those together and just kind of say, whoa, what did he just say? I actually believe we have a very optimistic outlook, because I actually believe great consternation, great change, great inflection points always precede great innovations. Look at any inflection point in American history when the can-do came can. When the organization or the culture or whatever it did all of a sudden spawned off a new idea, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing, what preceded it every time was an era of great ambiguity. Not quite sure where things fit, grappling with lots of issues. And then it was innovation and independence and oftentimes courage that took that organization or that thing or that idea to the next level. I would encourage you to contribute to EduTrending Now. I got to tell you something. I learn by doing this. I am a student of this. If you had worked with 230 independent schools and colleges and walked on their campuses and flown, unfortunately or fortunately, over 3 million miles with Delta from Portland, Oregon, you'd see these things like, I promise you, probably quicker than I would. There's nothing that makes me more qualified to identify these things than you, except that I spent a lot of time on an airplane I talk to a lot of schools, and I see a lot of different environments. I would love to keep the conversation going. I hope you'll contribute to EduTrending Now. I think it's a fascinating way that we can learn from each other. You can find me on Twitter in both of those places. It is always great to be at SAIS. Thank you.